in a sense, being single is a political advantage, that means in India.
Yes.
So that advantage should also work for Rahul Gandhi then, right?
Yeah.
What works for Narendra Modi should work for Rahul Gandhi as well. If you're saying being single, you know,
I'm sure that it's a package of things
Sure.
in terms of, like it's an image thing. I mean, like no one factor determines Indian elections. Like similarly, as far as personality cults go, there are a whole bunch of factors which go into that.
But when you look at from your vantage point at the state of the opposition, do you see the opposition being able to capitalize on what you seem to be suggesting already is creeping anti-incumbency? The factors could vary state by state, but there is creeping anti-incumbency, rural distress, unemployment, a serious crisis, inequality. Has the opposition simply not been good enough, or have they not been allowed to be good enough in India?
But it's always a combination of both, as you know. I mean, like I think, like you point out, my role here really, Rajdeep, is an observer. I've gone out there, I've seen what I can. Whether this translates into actual votes, doesn't translate, it's beyond me to be able to try and predict that. This is a journey of India. I know at the end of it, we are left with no choice, but everyone wants, what's your number, because that's all they want. But for me, this is a journey of India where I've learned a whole bunch of things as I've done this. And yes, as an investor, I bring it back to, okay, what are the risks? My entire thing as investor is, are there upside, are there downside risks? How do you position for that? I think that's the way that we approach the game.
Let's look at these upsides and downsides.
Yeah.
For a long time, a lot of Indian voters seem to want stability and continuity above all else. Are coalition governments bad for markets? Would markets be spooked if the BJP ends up, for example, less than 250, dependent on coalition partners, or almost unpredictably the opposition is able to cobble together a government? Are coalition really bad for markets? Because they've been very good for reforms. Some of India's biggest reforms have taken place during coalition governments.
Yeah, but I think that those reforms happened when India literally had a gun on its head, right? Which is the fact that we were bankrupt, we needed to reform. Most countries carry out economic reforms when they go bankrupt. That's what we're seeing around the world as well. I think that there's no doubt that if the BJP gets below 250, there'll be an initial big knee-jerk negative reaction on the market. I mean, if that black swan scenario kind of thing happens, if the BJP gets less than 250, the market will be down 10 to 20% in a day, in a flash.
10 to 20% in a day?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of it'll be down that much. I can tell you that if it gets less than 250, that will be the scenario. But it's not the base case scenario of anyone just now. I don't think anyone that. But if that were to happen, you would get an instant reaction. And then it depends again about what happens. In 2004, something similar happened. Let's just play that out, tease that out. But then the markets recovered very quickly. Why? Two factors. One, that there was a global emerging market boom which was happening. Two, that because they appointed people like Manmohan Singh and Chidambaram at that point in time, they were generally seen to be okay. But India got lucky because we had a big emerging market boom. We rode that. This time, the risk I see is that if you get below 250, how will the verdict be interpreted? If it's interpreted as being that, hey, we need to go back to doing a lot more welfare, spend on that and stuff, I think that it could be a much longer haul out of that. I'm very positive on India in the long term. I think that the fundamentals look great. But yeah, this is the most expensive stock market in the world currently. It is also the reason why foreign investors have been skittish about coming in. The on-the-ground environment still sort of needs to be improved a lot for foreign direct investment to come in. We are attracting FDI as a share of the economy today of just over around 1% of GDP. When China and all were booming, they were doing 4% of GDP, in terms of how much foreign investment as a share of the economy was coming in. So there's a lot more work which needs to be done. And the other thing which I wrote a piece in the FT about this a month ago, never take growth for granted or never take economic success for granted. I cited 5 examples there of countries which were seen as these, great superstars 5 years ago. And today, they are seen as breakdown nations.
Give me an example.
Canada has seen the worst in terms of economic performance of any developed country in the last 10 years or so. Germany was seen as a big economic star in terms of it's fallen off. South Africa, Chile, these are all countries which at some point in time were seen as very good. Chile was seen as the big star of Latin America, fallen off the radar. So in terms of we just need to be sort of, take it 3-4 years at a time. But Generally, I feel still constructive, but you got to be careful about it.